There is a new team atop the polls in college football. It is the Oregon Ducks, and today I will be talking about Dillon Gabriel. Gabriel is in the Heisman conversation with 2,080 passing yards and 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. His QBR of 84.4 is 8th in the country. There is one weakness, though, in his game, and that is throwing the ball across the field. Gabriel does a good job of throwing the ball downfield, but once the field is shortened or he has to throw the ball outside of the numbers within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, he has a hard time of placing the ball only where his receiver can get it. Illinois should start with a 4-2-5 defense. If the Ducks establish Jordan James on the ground early, they should switch it up to a 4-3-4 and shut down the deep routes to put Gabriel in a situation where he needs to hit the check down. That will create opportunities for the Fighting Illini defense to force some turnovers. Number 2, we have Georgia after a 15-point win against Texas in Austin. They definitely redeemed themselves after the Alabama loss, which I would like to bring up is kind of an interesting situation now that Alabama is a 2-loss team and they don't look so... ever since that Georgia win, they haven't looked like the team we thought they were. So the whole SEC is kind of interesting because Texas was the clear number 1 team in the country, the favorite in the SEC, and they lost to Georgia, who lost to an Alabama team that, especially on defense, does not look like the team we thought they would be. So it's kind of an interesting situation we're in of Georgia's 2 right now, but are they really 2? By the end of the season, will they be 2? We don't know. It'll be fun to see. We still have a month left of the regular season, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Number 3, I have Miami. In my column pieces for the Daily Evergreen, I kind of go in on Miami and Clemson. They haven't played anybody, and I continue to... Miami gave up 448 total yards and 45 points against Louisville, which people want to say, ooh, good for them, they won. This defense has given up 117 total points in the last 3 games. This is not a playoff-looking team. If Miami was in the SEC, I don't know if they'd be in the top 25. They'd probably be 7-5. And good for them for finding ways to win, but you look at the schedule, they don't have anybody. This strength of schedule is probably 50 spots worse than other teams contending like LSU, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. So I feel like this is going to be a situation where Miami's hyped all season long, and then they get to the playoff, they get a bye, they're in the quarters, and then they get wrecked. They just get smashed by an SEC school, and we're kind of like, oh, what is... That wasn't what we thought it would be. BYU, I have it 4. Kind of going to the overall Big 12 automatic qualifying spot. Iowa State gave up 354 rushing yards to UCF. And we knew going into the game that Iowa State's run defense was their weakness, but 354 rushing yards to a team that's 3-4 is it's pretty atrocious. So I think that's a clear BYU spot. I've always doubted the Big 12 and the ACC, and it continues. BYU, it took a 2-minute drive at the end of the game to beat Oklahoma State, who's 3-4 and winless in the Big 12. That's who's representing the conference as the 4 seed. I hope we see better football coming out of the ACC and the Big 12, or else it's not going to be pretty in the playoff. I think it'll be Big 10 and SEC dominated, and I thought that in the preseason. I continue to think that. Number 5, I have Ohio State. Ohio State and Texas are 5-6. They're, almost interchangeable. I feel like Ohio State and Texas could beat Oregon and Georgia in the SEC and Big 10 title game. So they are stacked. A lot of people who have been at the games have been saying Ohio State looks like an NFL team, which is crazy. At every position, receiver, running back, down to offensive and defensive linemen, defensive backs, everybody looks like they have the body type of an NFL player. Is crazy to have in college. Number 6, Texas. Texas, I'm a little more intrigued in just because I think Quinn Ewers is still getting back, getting his body used to taking hits, and then coming back and throwing some dimes. I'm not too worried. I know a lot of Texas fans are restless now that Texas is back. You know, the saying that Sam Ehlinger said after the 2019 Sugar Bowl. A lot of fans believe that, but I think every fan base should be humbled a little bit. Like, Quinn Ewers had a bad first half and everybody's up in arms. I think they'll be fine. I think Quinn Ewers just needs to be fully healthy, and it might take a couple more games, but they'll be fine. Number 7, I have Penn State. Drew Allaire looks like, probably like a top 15 player in college football right now. There are a few question marks with Penn State. I think they don't have the depth at receiver. They have a couple of receivers that are good, but if I think Allaire needs more options to throw the ball to. They've done a great job of using Tyler Warren, and with Kotelnicki, they've gone away from running the ball as much and gone more towards throwing the ball and using Drew Allaire's strengths in the offense. So that's good to see, and that's why I have him so high. I think this is a different Penn State team than in the past. Number 8, I have LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, I think, is in the same situation as Drew Allaire. Good quarterback in the time he's been able to play on the field for LSU. He's good, but he's not great. And I think Brian Kelly and the offensive coordinator have come together and been able to adjust toward Garrett Nussmeier's strengths, and as we've seen, it's only helped LSU. Now, this will be a very, very interesting week when they go into Texas A&M, and Texas A&M is my 11 team on here. We'll get to that in a little bit, but this might be a winner stays in the playoff projections and losers out. Oh, man. Texas A&M, Kyle Field's a tough place to play. It'll be interesting to see if Garrett Nussmeier and that offense can answer on the road in a hostile environment on Saturday. Number 9, I have Tennessee. Nico Iamaleava, I don't know what happened. When he played NC State and Oklahoma earlier in the season, he was hitting guys in stride. Basically, he was putting any ball where he wanted it to go, and it looked amazing. And then I don't know if Tennessee is focusing more on their defensive side in practice or not, but man, the offense just doesn't seem like it's clicking as well. I think part of that is because Heupel's offenses have always been known for passing the ball, but what's really got it going is the running back, and Dylan Sampson hasn't been playing as well as he was at the beginning of the year. Kind of like how I think a big thing of football in general is playing as a team. And so when I talked about Michigan is their defense is good when their offense gives them time to rest, so then they can be rested, get the oxygen they need, get the electrolytes, the water, all that, and then just be able to catch their breath. I think with Tennessee, it's you need the run game for defenses to stack the box, put 7-8 guys in the box, and then have Nico throw over them. So it'll be interesting. I think with the rest of their schedule, they only have one game that they could lose, really. Beating Bama might give them some confidence going forward, and they're 6-1. If they go 4-1 in their last 5, they'll be 10-2. They'll be a playoff team. Number 10, I have Indiana. I think Indiana is the story of the season. What Curtis Rourke and Curt Cignetti are doing in Bloomington is fascinating. It's so fun to see. I wasn't a big fan of Curt Cignetti. I thought he's kind of egotistical with the "I win wherever I go, Google me" quote, but I'm kind of getting on board with what's going on. It's a little interesting now that Curtis Rourke just had thumb surgery this morning. So I would like to see them continue to win without him. They have UW coming into town. Game day will also be in Bloomington this Saturday. So it'll be a great atmosphere. The first time game day for football has ever been in Bloomington. And then I hope I think Tavion Jackson will be the starter for Indiana on Saturday. So I hope they can still take care of business with him. I think they'll be fine because looking at the schedule, the only game they should lose is at Columbus against Ohio State. Outside of that, they have UW this Saturday and then Michigan November 9th. So Indiana should make the playoff this year if everything goes well. Number 11, like I said earlier, is Texas A&M. Texas A&M, I think this is a very... I got some comments after I said Texas A&M and LSU are both going to make the playoff, and I heard that's a lot of, if this happened, that'd be a lot of SEC bias, but right now my first three teams out are Clemson, Notre Dame, and Iowa State, and I would say, who have they beaten? Clemson has played two teams with winning record. Georgia, who they lost to by 31. And I think people are like, oh, Georgia's number 2 in the country. Well, one, that's a playoff team, and they put up 3 points, and they looked atrocious. On offense, on defense, Clemson was not there. And I think that is easy to say that Georgia was clearly, unanimously the better team against Clemson. And then Virginia, who's 4-3, went into Death Valley and lost by 17. And that Clemson defense gave up 31. So good for Clemson for scoring on 8 straight possessions against Wake Forest or NC State. But when it comes to somebody that is actually good, that is beating teams more than they are losing, Clemson's giving up 30 plus, and their offense just isn't moving the ball as it should. I can't say that Clemson looks like a playoff team. Notre Dame is the same. On Saturday against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's 5-3, pretty good team, but nowhere near competing for the ACC title or the playoff. It did not. Georgia Tech's backup was in, and it still didn't look like a convincing win. I mean, Notre Dame kept their starters in and kept pushing the ball downfield to put up 24, and then Zach Pyron threw a pick 6 to have Notre Dame score 31. So that was more of a 17-7 game, and Georgia Tech was in it the whole way until the end, when really I felt like it was kind of a questionable sportsmanship decision by Freeman and the coaching staff. I think they knew that they had to put up style points, and it looked bad. If you watch that game over, they didn't look much better than Georgia Tech. So they beat Texas A&M, but they also lost to Northern Illinois. So to me, I think Texas A&M also looks like a much better team than they did game 1 against Notre Dame, whereas I think Notre Dame's best game was week 1, and now we're starting to look, and I think if Texas A&M and Notre Dame played right now, it's pretty clear Texas A&M's the better team. So I have Texas A&M ahead of them for that reason. And then going back to Iowa State, Iowa State's played 2 teams with a winning record, Arkansas State and Iowa. And I mean, we just saw Michigan State take it to Iowa on Saturday, so that win doesn't mean much. And Iowa State's struggling against UCF, who's 3-4. So I think Texas A&M's 31-point win against Missouri, and I think, especially going back to the Texas A&M Notre Dame game, that was Mike Elko's first game as the head coach. Now that they've had 7 games under his belt, they look much better. And Connor Wiegman looks like he fits Elko's system. I think I don't want to hold game 1 against any team. I think Texas A&M looks like the better team. They have the better resume, better strength of schedule, better strength of record. I think that spot would go to Texas A&M right now. And number 12, I think this gets more and more interesting. I have Boise. Now, in my rankings, I have Boise State is ranked 19th, and Army is 23. So just a few spots separate the two. Boise, a thing I hear a lot, especially Reese Davis loves to say this, is a good loss can't be the best part of your resume. And I think that is true for Boise. Boise also has the best player in the country. Hawaii did a good job of slowing them down, and really kind of like what I've said in the past couple weeks is, if you stack the box against Boise, Maddox Madsen will struggle to throw the ball. And I would like to see UNLV on Friday night stack the box and have Catalan as one of the 3 or 4 defensive backs and see if Maddox Madsen can throw it on an SEC level defensive back. I don't think he can. And then you have Woodward at linebacker trying to stop Ashton Genty. I think UNLV would be the team that could have Boise's number. That wouldn't shock me. And then on the other end, you look at Army. Army has changed their triple option only offense to be able to throw the ball more, kind of from a more pro style, kind of under center, play action type, use the tight ends. And on top of that, Bryson Daly can still run. I have Navy 24, too, a spot behind Army. The only question I have about Navy is they have a much harder strength of schedule. Navy right now, if I recall, is 3-0 in conference. Army's already 6-0. So Army has UTSA, who's 2-4, and North Texas left in conference. So I think at worst they split those two, if not win both. They're in the American title game. Both Army and Navy have Notre Dame, but Navy also has Tulane and South Florida, which South Florida is struggling, but they still have talent. Tulane can definitely beat Navy, and if Navy loses a game, that kind of shakes up for that second spot in the American. And then that would mean Army also hosts the conference title game. So right now, I think Army has the better path to winning the conference. And I think Bryson Daly's honestly a Heisman candidate. He should be considered at least. I have him in the top 10. So I think once you look past the talent that Army has with Bryson Daly and Boise has with Ashton Genty, these two teams are pretty equal, and I think it'll be a fun race to watch through the rest of the season. So thank you for watching this week, and I hope you come back next week.